So the agenda for today is essentially to provide an initial introduction of the reporting requirements metadata vocabulary and from where it started, what were the main ideas and objectives behind the development of the specification. Then I will leave the floor to Professor Monica Palmirani, which will describe a little bit the context and the main reasons behind essentially the design principles that she adopted for the development of the RRMV. Then I will leave the floor to the CEMIC PwC team that essentially analyzed the work done by Professor Palmirani and provided some recommendations and some change requests. Then the third part of the meeting, which we expect it to be a little bit the higher, the part that is going to take the most time, is essentially we received a set of change requests either from the CEMIC PwC team, some from the internal DRPM team, so the team behind this specification, because the objectives a little bit shifted during its development, and from a colleague working on the ELI task force from Poland, which I don't think that he will make it to this call, but still we wanted, since he provided his feedback in writing, we still wanted to include it and introduce it into this discussion. The main part of this section is essentially an opportunity for you to express your opinion and discuss on the various aspects related to the semantic modeling of the specification. And finally, we will move a little bit towards the organizational measures that we introduced, that we plan to introduce during this next phase of development of the RRMV, and a little bit, and then focusing on the next steps and especially the immediate actions and milestones that we planned for the specification and for the first release of it. So what led to the development of this reporting requirement metadata vocabulary specification? Essentially, this originated in the need for having a vocabulary in the area of regulatory reporting, were expressed in 2022 within the regulatory reporting community of the European Commission, which is for the people that do not know about it. It is a community of people involved in the process of regulatory reporting, either from a more technical perspective or from more the business side. So essentially also policy officers that are involved in setting reporting requirements in legislation or are responsible for monitoring their implementation. And they expressed the need to have essentially a common vocabulary to describe this process and to facilitate the efforts of streamlining the regulatory reporting, all the different phases of regulatory reporting. And this translated into the launch of this initial project, the Study on Regulatory Reporting Standards, SORTIS in short, which is essentially a wider project that involved among the various outputs of SORTIS. We have also the development of the standardized vocabulary. This project was a collaborative effort led by the Digital Ready Policymaking team of DG Digit B2, Interoperability and Digital Government. And here we involved in a very strict collaboration Professor Palmirani from the University of Bologna and Professor Ashwinito from the University of Liège. The main architect of the specification is Professor Palmirani, because the task of Ashwin were mostly focused on other deliverables. And the main objective of this task was to standardize and organize reporting requirements metadata through the use of a vocabulary. Essentially, this vocabulary defines, then the results were that this vocabulary defines concepts, properties, and relations present in the regulatory reporting process, with the goal of facilitating the interoperability of solutions for the management of reporting requirements, proposing ways to approach the identification of reporting requirements in legislation and inform the legal drafting process when the policy officer needs to set reporting requirements in legislation, and then also all the other stakeholders involved into the policy-making process enter into place. Having said this, I wanted to leave the floor to Professor Palmirani, which will introduce briefly the project and explain a little bit her views on how it played out.
Yes, good morning to everyone. Thank you for this occasion to present our work and also the main rationale. So the reporting requirement is a sort of internal obligation of the institutions inside of a legislative corpora. And this kind of obligation, tracking, monitoring, and checking is a need that is not only coming from the European institution, but is a general trend over the world. We have a similar project with the United Nations because they want internally to track this kind of reporting requirements and to monitor the evolution over the time. So we call obligation, but is not correct terminology, because obligation in legal domain means a command addressed to the citizen or the companies or other external actor and agents. But by the way, the main goal is to extract ex post or to model ex ante these kind of specific clauses provision inside the legislation in order to check easily the evolution over the time. And obviously also to check the similarity and the similarity with the policy. Next. This is an example. So in this case, there is a command to provide a report and to present to European Parliament and Council every 5 years, starting from a specific date about the topic. So the idea is to extract automatically this kind of information and classify these clauses in order to maintain under control these requirements. Obviously, these provision present a frequency, so we want also to calculate the next forecasting reports and requests. Next. So this is what we have done. First of all, using previous databases manually done by experts for extracting the knowledge and modeling the current ontology. And we use the ontology combined with machine learning and also other kind of techniques like regular extraction for extracting the main part of the language and to map in the ontology. Next. So the competence question are when is expected to the next action in the next period of time, which action are suspended, like during the period of the COVID, for instance, Corona, and we needed to maintain under control the requirements that are suspended or affected by some modification, and also to answer to the question who is the addressee over the time, because also the agent change over the time. Next. We reuse as much as possible existing valuable ontologies. First of all, ALI, but not limited to ALI, also Accomantoso, FRBR, because EKN for EU is a standard for institutions, and obviously CCEV. Next. ALI is a pillar for us, so we use a lot of existing predicates already implemented in ALI, and also the FRBR annotation for legal documents, so works inspection and manifestation. Next. And we use a pattern agent rule because agent is not enough. Agent is individual or organization, but we need to fix in a given moment the role of the agent playing some action. So we use the ontology pattern, agent role time, for fixing these. Next. And also the time is super important, because you can see frequency is not only a concept, is composed by a value of the frequency and the period of the frequency, year, month, day, and so. So it is not nice to have a frequency only as a cost concept. Next. Next. So this is what we have modeled. So we have a request that is a fragment extracted from the fragment of the legislation. In the request, I can detect multiple actions in case of frequency, and the action, as a result of the action, played by some agent rule in a given period of time. Next. Another important issue that I would like to remark that is that the agent role change over time in the nomination, and now many ontology in the European institution are flat in regard of this topic, but we need definitely to take the track of the evolution of the naming and the agent and the role. So now we have ESMA, but in the past, the same role of ESMA was played by CESR, so the Committee of European Security Regulators. So we need a complex pattern ontology concerning agent role and time for maintaining connection, even if the name and the role and the competencies of the agent change over time. Next. This is an ontology. Next. And obviously we need also to maintain consistent these triples, these assertion over the time. This is a graph of the evolution of the legislation and the modificatory document that was affected twice with the modificatory modification of modification. So these complex network need definitely ALI in the back for maintaining updated the assertion concerning the request. Next.
Okay. I don't know, Monica, if you want later we have included in your comments also later in the slides. And now I wanted to give the floor to Semi PwC just to give a little bit. So this was the initial ontology developed by Monica with these principles in mind and these important considerations in mind. And having received with this deliverable, we also wanted to hear other opinions from other teams, experts in semantic modeling, and we involved the SEMIC PwC team that analyzed the initial ontology and provided a set of recommendation according to their view and their understanding of the main use cases. And given this, I would leave the floor. I guess it's going to be Bert.
Yes, I will start the presentation and Bert will continue. Bless you for the introduction. I think, well, good morning for everyone. So we're happy to be here from the SEMIC side of the team. And we've wanted to start a bit with why SEMIC. So if you go to the next slide, Alessio, I can just give a bit of an overview of SEMIC. So the main goal of SEMIC is to deliver pragmatic support to help to build interoperable Europe. Within this, we have different support mechanisms. So we, of course, have specification. With this is the publication and maintenance of open and free to use data models, which we, of course, regularly update. We also focus on pilots with public administrations. All of this information, of course, is part of our knowledge hub. So we have a knowledge hub where we provide training materials, guidelines, and other information about our events, along with the specifications and pilots. And last but not least, we also have a toolkit, which is a provision of accessibility of the European toolchain for data extraction, transformation, and of course, loading. So this is all information. We can share the link with you if you would like to have more information on what we do. This is all on our knowledge hub. And if you have any questions, of course, on this, we can answer that later on. But to go into why we are here today and the SEMIC PwC analysis of the RMB model, on the next slide, we wanted to give you, of course, a bit of introduction for us. So if you can go, Alessio, to the next slide. Thank you. The motivation for the CEMIC style guide, what is this and what we used for this analysis? So we wanted to share our existing experience and of course the current practices in a document that actually captures all of this CEMIC style guide elements. Within this, we want to improve the quality and the coherence of the CEMIC assets. We also wanted to streamline and support the extension of core vocabularies and the application profiles by the member states. It's important also that the CEMIC style guide is available. We will also provide a link for you if you would like to have a more detailed look at it. And last but not least, with this CEMIC style guide, we would like to address the challenges, of course, that are present because of the growing need of data specifications and the more and more upcoming data spaces initiative. Just to mention a couple, of course, there's a public procurement data space, health data space. There are a lot of topics coming up within this domain. I think with this, I will give the floor to Bert to take over, to go more into the different elements that we found in this study. And of course, if there's any questions on CEMIC itself and what we are discussing, we are here to answer this. Bert, the floor is yours.
Okay, good. Thank you, Sophia. So what is with the style guide, this is kind of this rule set that we use to analyze the model and to have a reflection on what can be improved on it. Can you go forward, Alessio? Yeah. And if you look to it, what we did is we have a tool chain tooling that creates and does and assists us to create the artifacts that we need. And for that, we did a first version of it, of what it could be, of what you saw from Monica. We applied it as is to it and see what is then missing, of what can be improved or what would be then challenged by the style guides into it. You see that we rearranged so the boxes, the rectangular boxes, are the classes, and then you have the relationships as the arrows, the same as was in Monica's drawing before. So this is roughly corresponding, but still a bit reorganized into certain things. And so the first thing are pure technical editorial improvements to be made. So next slides. That on the chat. So we transformed it into UML, and then there are some of the changes, and it's some discussion we can in the change request. It comes back to it. Is that if we in topic 2 there the DCT parts of, and you saw it in the example of Monica, the last one, is that the relationship with a request, RMV request with ELI legislation, how you do that, how can we separate this, can we make more clear, can we give in that respect a better definition for this or a cleaner definition for this. So this is an effect, and that's why you see the changes of this term part. We'll discuss that in the change requests, that just to give you what is the outcomes of the things that we have seen. Okay, next slide. Okay, so if we see into the rules that being applied, is that we try to organize with CEMIC style guide the outcome in a way that is human readable, but at the same time has a semantic foundation and a connection with it. And there we make certain choices in the artifacts and in the things to be created. And one of the choices is that we will, like Monica showed, we use ontologies, but we use this in a way that the outcome is more lightweight. So if we define something new, it will be a lightweight ontology to be added. We use shackle to express the constraints, etc. as well. Of course, versioning to be applied, some additional information, etc. So exactly, this is editorial information to be added. Next. Then there are a number of other editorial things, and that we would like to have way more information on which is the kind of multiplicity we expect at execution or the current situation. Is this always free, or do we have one, etc.? So these are kind of these things that you can find in these areas of improvements to it. Okay, so these are the usual stuff to make it more coherent and storytelling-wise improvements. So these are not changing semantically a lot. It's improving things. And you see, for instance, improve definitions. Where they were missing, add them and do this. So these are the things of comments to it. Okay, next. Okay, so this is summary of it. Then we move to Alessio. I don't know.
Yes. Yes, I would take back the floor now. Thank you very much, Bert, for your introduction and expressing a little bit the high-level comments. I will give back the floor to you because essentially in this section we introduced a little bit your comments, a little bit more in detail. The way that so essentially here the way that we thought that this session could play out is essentially that we would go through the main changes, especially concerning the conceptual elements of the model in detail, while concerning the more stylistic element, such as adding semantic versioning or increasing the usage notes. We already got some feedback from Monica and also on our side from the DRPM team. We essentially agree with some of them, but in any case, we will share with them this with you in after this meeting. And if anybody that is participating to this workshop has something to say, we will still accept some of your comments. As you can see, these are mostly stylistic, and we don't see any major problem concerning them. I also wanted to say that one of the comments by Semik, it was that the model contains URIs, but they're not persistent. We already made an official request to the OP concerning this, and we obtained a permanent URI, which is 2Q Ypsilon. So moving back, I think it's the first one that where we have essentially something to be discussed is this part related to separate how to. One comment by Semik PwC was to essentially separate the code list from the model to make their lifecycle management independent. And I don't know, Bert, if you want to motivate this. I know that Monica has also some ideas on how to approach this, but then I leave you the floor, Bert, in the meantime to motivate it. Yeah.
So our recommendation from Semik is usually the following. If we have code lists identified in a model, in the need for that, then we try to elaborate what is the kind of code lists we need, and then we look for the right organization to maintain this code list. By preference, by natural, we look to the publications office. So if it can be in that area, we hand over this management to the publications office and over there. That doesn't mean that is always the case. It might be that there are community-driven or somewhere other organizations that have code lists available and that are well maintained. So this is one of the critical criteria typically to move it or to use that. So this is the selection, and to make this identified. Important in the model, we will identify which code list preferably is to be used or must be used. So on this. So this is the separation. So it's not maintaining the code list inside the model.
Okay, I see Monica, maybe you have a comment here, but maybe no. I see Cecilia has her hands raised, so please.
Yes, so my question is whether we cannot solve this change request by considering that we will have application profiles that will document these code lists, because I understand fully the comment of Monica that having code lists and also being, the code list may change as well. So there must be also a versioning around these code lists linked to the model. But if everybody can agree that we would have an application profile that will precisely capture all these additional constraints, then it would be solved.
I see that there is nobody else is. Is anybody against this proposal by Cécile?
No, I'm fine.
I think then we can agree on this. Okay, Monica.
Yes, first of all, let me introduce my colleague, Andrea Nuzzolese, that helped me and still help me and support me for the quality check of the ontology. The separate list of life cycle or something like this, we would like to maintain in any case a closed vocabulary, because it's super important to make queries even if we have heterogeneous a period of time of legislation, very old-fashioned documents, not updated in the Argentine rule, but by the way we needed to synchronize with the new one. So it is important to have a closed vocabulary. So we don't have no problem to define in different way, like a JSON file or other technologies, not inside of a instantiation, because in our proof of concept we use the instance inside for make easier the testing. But by the way, the concept to have a closed vocabulary, especially of the status of the role, of the type of the role, is super important for make queries across the time, across the type of the legislation, regulation, directives, soft law in the future.
Can I make it? So I think that there is no question that a closed vocabulary is really a functionality that is important to be for interoperability reasons. But the question is how to, so not to have it too tightly coupled with the model, with the core model, but to consider having it in an application profile, so that it can also be, there can be variations for countries, or that there is, we will define this closed vocabulary for the Commission, for instance, but it may be that in another instance of the world, it's needed another.
No, sorry, Cecile, but this is not a matter of jurisdiction dependence. This is a very high level, and probably exactly for maintaining interoperability, the status of suspended is equal for everyone, and are very general concept, not depending to each jurisdiction. And also addressee and adressaire, exactly the same, and very general, not depending to Italian legislation, European legislation. And it is nice to have a query, give me all the addressee in Italy and in European legislation with the same query. And secondly, European institutions are quite familiar with the common vocabulary, because there is a core common vocabulary metadata, and we can have a similar file.
Bert?
I think, but as personally, that's the way of Cécile formulated is correct, but that if there's need for a consolidated version, closed vocabulary named, then we need to connect this with version management and saying, okay, add a version, this we can compile it in, and this is a version. But then you always have how to deal it with back-end changes. For instance, if there's a new role to be defined, where does it come in? When does it come in? When it's being adopted? And here I would like to share some example with the community where I've been active the last 10 years. Is the DCAT community, the DCAT-EP community, where there were a lot of code lists, and there are shared concepts everywhere as a code list and anything, and they are modeled and queried across. So I don't see the risk personally, so that we, if everybody does proper lifecycle management on all layers, then it will work. But that's my experience with that community.
Sorry, but DCAT is a completely different community. Is a catalog metadata I know very well. I apply quite frequently, and also the profile of Italy, and it's a classification of catalogs of open data, and it's completely different topic. Now we are talking about legislation and the theoretical legal theory concept in general. And like I did in the past, we have the occasion to fix also some pillars in this conceptualization. So it is not a matter of topic. It's not a matter of catalog. It's a matter of a theory of law concept to put in clearly in the track for attaining at the end the scope and the purpose and the goal that we have in mind.
So I hear all your points, and maybe Cecile, you want to please, Cecile, intervene.
Yeah, so now I understand from where Monica comes, because you are chair of the legal DocML standardization body. So Oasis standardization body. So I understand that you see it with a worldwide view. Now, I think that if we accept your view, it would really differ quite. So I think that there is also a timeline in this. And the question is, if we want to have a code list that is good for everybody, either you think, it's a question to you, either you think that all what is provided by the legal DocML specification will ensure that we have the code list without making any agreements with all these parties, or whether, because we don't have, I don't think that we have in our hands the needed community to be able to specify all those code lists if they have to be included in the model. And we need to come with a specification in a reasonable time, because you have here in the call people of SecGen, for instance, who need to implement it, and because you are part of this project as well. So for me, it's when we say my issue with having so I understand your point that it's something that should be legal theory, let's say. So it should be good for everybody. But if when we say good for everybody, it means that we have agreements. So this specification needs to convey a form of agreement of the community, and I'm not sure that it can be reached in a reasonable amount of time. So that is a bit my concern also.
And now can I just jump in on this? So I see this, personally, I see this solution of separating the code list while maintaining the initial code list that Monica, you proposed, is a form of mitigating this change request that may occur in the future, but not necessarily, it wouldn't mean changing the initial code list that you proposed within the ontology. It just would separate it technically and provide it a versioning. Am I correct in this understanding, Bert?
Yes, that would be the thing is that the life cycle of the ontology has a different nature as the life cycle of the controlled vocabulary. In the controlled vocabulary, typically new elements appear more frequently, are agreed more simple. The process around this, the governance is typically more simple because the impact is very well defined, and that's the reason why to separate. But I understand as well from Monica's side that she wants to ensure that there is an overall coherency of it, and that we somehow agree that this coherency must be maintained overall. And she calls it closed vocabulary. It's the coherency that has to be maintained.
I see we have an agreement then, so we would do this, accept this proposed change, but while making sure that we always ensure coherency with the wider community on these. Okay, let's then move to the
which is very important, of course. So
yes.
This is
okay. We are a little bit in delay, so here I think on this one we will tackle. Okay, we will this. Okay, and then here let's move to this other change request made again by Semic. And here we also have another ready comment from Monica that there is a form of disagreement on this change request. So essentially reducing the number of connectors and associated classes by using attributes. It would be essentially englobating some classes as attributes within other classes. And Bert, do you want to introduce the reason for your change request and your perspective? And I can show later. Here we have a slide following exactly a tentative list of what you thought how it could be changed the original model to a proposed future model. I don't feel like saying improved because it's we really need to discuss on this.
So
first Bert and then Monica, please.
Yes. Can you back to the list?
Yes.
So let me say that
Monica, first, since the change request came from Bert, I would first give him the opportunity to explain his reasoning.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. But this is as well. This maybe might be for the rest around the table as well. Part of the discussion, I think, this effect of this change request comes from the effect of, if we look to the reorganization that we proposed, that we can reduce or can move a number of the relationships to a more condensed or a simpler way. This has to do with that. And this is maybe, and this is as well, certain things in this year. You see, for instance, actions has status, where it is actually saying this relationship has status can be more condensed into just status and pointing to a code list of the type status. So this is just a proposal. It makes it more readable and more easier to give some feedback on it and so on. So this is the overall objective of the reason why, but this has to be connected with, let's say the overall representation and the presentation of the model, and maybe because of it, what we will discuss, this is a natural consequence.
Monica, do you have any feedback on this, or express your reasoning behind the design principles that you use now?
No, this is the most relevant comment that we disagree, Andrea and me, because I totally understand the purpose to simplify, but we need to have classes and predicates for maintaining the flexibility to have a reasoning about that, especially on the temporal one, where in order to represent the complexity of the temporal situation. And we kindly ask to maintain our schema. A status is fundamental, as I said, for understanding if the action are suspended, reactivated, postponed according to the temporal modifications. Temporal modification are not textual modification, are temporal modification for postponing the operative of some act. Like during the COVID, many regulations were suspended totally, and according to these, also the requests are suspended. So status is super important to maintain the current class. Frequency the same, because we need to talking about the frequency to have a discourse reification of the frequency and make a query very expressive on the frequency. And also agent type and role. We appreciate to have really the possibility to have a discourse and reasoning about that. So what we can accept, obviously, is the request topic. This is discuss concept, no problem. And also probably the type of result, which is nice. But the temporal function also is super important for understanding if the action produces a side effect of delay or concerning other norms. Because in the future, we would like to understand which other norms depend to this obligation, which other norms are affected by delay if this reporting requirement is suspended. And for doing so, we need definitely to maintain the current modeling.
I think here we are less of a side of a difference, Monica. I think maybe you have misinterpreted this statement a little bit in the sense that the objective is not to throw away any of the information that is in the original model we collected, but it is try to represent it in a way that it might be easier and more readable to maintain. So this is just the objective of this. It's not to throw away information storage or gathering. That's not the intention of it. So it is, in that sense, it is maybe a more side effect of the revamping, where you would say, okay, yes, it is still there, but slightly in a different form or in another way. For instance, on the temporal information, we could suggest even to go more open, not only to have this simplistic view, but have a more open all-time like things or something like this to introduce all possibilities.
We have a temporal model inside of a Accomantoso, and we need to synchronize. And the model that we proposed is totally synchronized with the evolution of the publication office and the ALI and Accomantoso. So this effort was very high for producing this temporal model totally synchronized with these other two standards. Okay. And for this reason, I would like to maintain the current model. But I leave the floor also to Andrea. Andrea, please, if you have something to add, take the floor.
Yeah, I think that it's mainly a matter of misunderstanding here. So if I guess it correctly, so I will start from a question. So in the improved model, what are the ranges of the predicates there? So status, what is a status? Is that a concept? So a concept or an entity or a string? So I think that the misunderstanding is on the naming them as attributes that typically in the ontology modeling are converted to data type properties that then are linked to strings. If the objective is to represent status, temporal function topics as strings, then we are doing it in a bad way. So if it is only a matter of simplifying the visualization, I think that the two ways. So action as status is simply saying that the final type of the status is a specific kind of concept that is a status. So we are trying to also harmonizing the possible type for values that are concept for representing status. That goes also in the direction of the previous points. So for interoperability. So we don't want that a status is any possible concept that is a cost concept. We want a specific type of cost concept that is worth in this model for representing a status. And it is the way that the kind of way that we are representing here. Then on the naming convention, there are, it is still open, but some naming convention in the ontology modeling community suggest to use has as the prefix for object properties instead of status that is typically meant for data type properties. So I think here that the main misunderstanding is mainly the naming convention and the overall view over the model. If we solve this, I think also from your introduction, we are more or less on the same conclusion, I would say.
Yeah, I think we agree on that in sense of that's I think here it is the question of what is the kind of naming convention we are going to follow. There are differences here, and that you really pointed out in sense of to which we more inclined to be using, because if we reuse information from for different models, you encounter different naming conventions. So we will not be able to just to say we pick our own and we shield our own, because then we have everything in our own namespace and we do it in our own. So if you want to do the reuse, we encounter different naming conventions and we have to solve it for this model.
Another thing on these. So if we want to, so here we combine, one thing that we put one thing that comes from ontology modeling in UML, and this I also think is controversial somehow. So if we want to represent, so what is an attribute that comes from data modeling, so from the object-oriented paradigm, and we want to represent these as an ontology concept by using description logics. But I agree that is a matter of deciding the naming convention and being consistent within the same model, and possibly being consistent what already exists in the community in terms of modeling. So if we agree on this, then I think that what Monica is suggesting on preserving the conceptual modeling of status and all the possible concepts that might be used for classifying specific concepts that are relevant for conveying the general modeling is what to be preserved.
Yeah, but that's what preserved is. So that's the intention, is to is preserved. And it's maybe here we are discussing on what is the best naming convention, how it should be visualized to the community. That might be.
Okay, so I'm just going to take back the floor because we also have other matters to discuss. So here I just put it in the chat in terms of naming conventions from the business side. We would be to be most in line with what is used in the ontology modeling community in the field of legal semantics, and also to be in line with what is used in the OP, mostly what kind of naming convention is used there. And I believe that in this case, what I hear from your discussion is that this recommendation is not taken, or maybe taken only partially. Maybe concerning what Monica said, I see that we have an agreement that maybe on request topic and request has topic concept that could be taken in, while others we would prefer to keep these the initial modeling from Monica, also because the requirement for future proofing this model has a higher priority than simplifying the visualization of the model for the user.
It's not only visualization, but it is okay. Let's say readability, but okay, we are see on it. But let's say look and make clear what is the naming convention to be used, so that everyone knows if we agree, and then we can resolve certain conflictuous situation, because we have to choose at some point between A and B.
Yes,
always.
Perhaps also we can liaise with colleagues in the publications office if I use some specific some specific elements, and we will get back to this on that. But for now, we maybe only accept this change or request topic, and maybe in another iteration we will potentially nothing it prevents us to propose this change again eventually. Okay. Moving on, here this was a comment from Hubert. Please introduce what is about and
so here and there will be later on a slide where we have the model layered, and that's a vision I would like to be discuss with you to see with it if this is according and the intentions and so on. What I've done is layering the model in 3 layers. The top layer is ELI. It's just ELI as it is being used to express legislation. So if you remove the bottom 2 parts, you only see you're discussing about legal texts and the evolution of legal text and legislation. In the orange part, that's the part that we are discussing, our model, RMV, which should relate somehow to this legal text. And everything what is core of the model should be in that one. That's the thing. And the bottom part, the red part, is new. That's not in the model at the moment. It's a suggestion. So it's one of the change requests if we should look at it. And this is really open in the sense that there's nothing decided or not fleshed out substantially at all. So this is in the idea. So, but it's to give you the relationship. That the last part is about the relationship, how it functions, and it is in an actual obligation monitoring system to follow up and to see to connect this flow with the information that is in the RMV available as a machine readable representation.
Please, Monica, I'm sorry. Did you finish, Bert? Maybe you didn't.
Just one second to make the split and to come back to the issue where we started. Is that in my opinion, and my thing is that the requests here is something that has its own life cycle compared to the legislation. So you can have a reporting request. This request is related to one legislation. The legislation changes, but it's actually the same request having a certain different variation and a certain different representation and obligation. So it is not a separate request at its own. It's not a legislation, but a request, and you follow the request. And that's creates this separation as well. So then you have an evolution of the legislation as it is, defined, well-defined, and you have an evolution of the request, the obligation requests to be followed over time in relationship with the legislation. That's the introduction I would like to give.
Monica?
So I started from these. Request is a part of, not a subclass of legal expression, not at all. Because legal expression is a document and request is a portion of the text. Sometimes we have also a portion of the text combined with another portion of the text for completing the request. So 2 articles compose a request and is a part of, definitely. So no doubts about that, because the FRBR is based on, especially now LLI and the publication office is based on document, but we have a portion of the provision combined with others for obtaining a request. So this is ontologically not a subclass, but ontologically is a portion. Elaborated in such a way, because there is a cut and paste of different sources sometimes. This is what we discovered with the project. Ashwin was forced to combine different articles for obtaining a make sense request splitted around the text. Coming back to the proposal schema.
Maybe, Cecile, you have something to say about this specific topic, or before we...
Yeah, so it was, but maybe I think that Monica did not finish her rationale. I wanted to say that I don't think that they have their own independent life. So precisely because the request is in the context, in this legal context, it is completely, it has meaning in the context of the legal text. So I don't think that if the legal, the rest of the text changes, it could be that the request remains unchanged. So for me, it is, but I think that Monica would have that argument in her. So yeah.
Please, Monica, sorry for interrupting you.
So, but in this schema, I see that request is a part of, so I totally agree on this. So I'm inclined to support this. So the request is a part of a like expression. And another point in general, apart of I like to divide in these, but we already discussed the main part before concerning the classes. I'm missing some classes, and agent is not a fourth. Agent can't be a fourth. Because
Monica, we will tackle, it's another change request. If you want, we can jump to that one directly.
No, but I would like to comment these schemas. Sorry, because there are several issues that agent is a part of the yellow boxes, because we want legal institutional agent, not a common agent, because in the future the idea is to have also an ontology of the competencies and to connect to each agent also the competencies. So Mickey Mouse is not an agent in our domain, but in fourth is an agent, admitted, and Harry Potter as well. So, and finally, the suggestion of the final box, I'm very glad to see, because Andrea and us and me already did for the United Nations, and we can extend easily our model also to the part of execution of the request. We discussed it internally with Alessio and Cecilia in the beginning if the proof of concept should include also the execution. We decided for the first step to not include what we have already, a twin part, totally twin part of the ontology, mirroring also the execution. So the execution action is not connected to the agent, but to the request. And the request execution as executed action is connected to action, and the executed request is connected with the request, and so far. So not passing through the agent, but connecting directly to the forecast action connected with the real action data. We already did this ontology for UN, and we can extend easily also these boxes for these contests.
Okay. Bert, do you have any follow up on this? Do you agree? Do you not agree?
First, just would like to stress for the community and for the sake of conversation that the UML diagram that you saw over there is not the final one. So it's the one to be discussed, and it's just a reflection, just to illustrate. That's the first thing I would say. So the outcome of the version 1 that we would produce would look slightly different, of course. And the second thing is, it's good to hear that we have this layering is accepted. because some of the comments of the Jaroslav from that Polish colleague that did a review were about certain relationships that where he saw it's more of the orange was as the legislation. So he was mixing the two in his comments. So that would clarify as well to illustrate that more to him how what is the choices of the terms to be used and what the semantics are.
Okay.
So that would as well address some of his comments.
Okay, so returning back to point to change request date, then I suppose this is not taken on board.
You know, it is taken on board. So this is
okay.
Separate. So this is the layering, the part of. So when Monica said she would support for it, of course she will do an in-depth review of the final one. But how it looks like. But so this is accepted, and this one is. Monica has a proposal for it. Glad to see it, what it is. So our red box to be removed, to be rediscussed with this proposal.
Perfect. Okay. Then this is exactly what you mentioned, Monica, about the agent. And essentially here in the Y, it was again Bert, and here I put the two definitions of ELI agent and FOF agent a little bit to try to distinguish what we commented. We have a couple of solutions also in mind from the DRPM team, but I believe maybe Cecile or Davide can introduce them later.
Sorry, there is already the solution inside of the schema. So I don't understand the problem. Our model exactly answer to this problem. Come back to our model, and in the model there is a agent type, and the agent type is port of Rotterdam, and port of Rotterdam is a type of operator. And yes, and you can connect it directly through agent type. Obviously, if your agent type is an attribute, we can reiterate so much in flexible way these. But if you use this model, you have everything for annotate this situation. So portal operator is a agent type, and Rotterdam port is the agent, and inside of the law is a written agent type, and you can address these.
Bert or Cecile that has her hand raised?
No, go on, Bert. It's
yeah, the reason why we still would like to open this is that the question is, what is the ELI agent and so on really representing? Because sometimes we were confused about it in the sense that if this is the real individual person, individual organization, together with the fact that the question is why you the agent type you have at the agent role. You see the intermediate, so the action is related with the agent role. You might find in the legislation the agent type. It is for companies, it is for associations, it's for individuals, but you only can know it and express it if you have a real agent in this model. So it would be therefore arguable that the agent type is somehow connected to an agent type, agent role type intermediate class, which says I'm an individual in as in the role of taxpayer.
Sorry, I can intervene. The problem is very clear with an example. Judge. Judge is a role, is not a person. Obama is a president, but first of all is individual. And the agent of Obama is a person playing a role of a president in a given moment of time, but not so longer a president. And now Obama is playing another role in a different time, but the agent is the same. So using this model that is a pattern, not invented by us, but is a very famous ontology pattern used by Gangemi since a while, we can manage the evolution over the time of the role of the same person or institution and the type or general type of the agent inside of a society. So this model is very flexible for maintaining the evolution in the society and the legislation, especially in the institution of Europe that change frequently, the consistency over the time and the mapping before and after modification. I give an example. Before 2000 and after 2000, the agent could be the same with different role and different type. For this reason, we suggest to maintain this approach for not have only a label, but to have evolution of the agent role and type over the time.
I'm not disagreeing with the use case, Monica. That's not but what I'm seeing is that with this model, the notion, if you have in the legislation the notion of an individual company, you need to have an explicitly named agent available in order to represent that. How do you relate an individual with an action? An agent type, so an agent type individual with an action. How do you see that
is a general token organization without a label different, and organization you can map on the port, maritime port, commercial association, bar association, is intermediate general agent type, as you like. The problem is to have a complete list of the agent type, as we discussed before, and to maintain updated the intermediate agent type. Andrea can explain better than me, but we have agent organization, not a specific name of the organization, and the organization type is a port, and Rotterdam is finally the Rotterdam port, if you have this information, but not in the law, only in the fact. When you apply the ontology in the fact, not by the law, because the goal is to extract this information by the law. After, the people can integrate with the fact this annotation.
Cécile?
Yeah, so in fact, it's what I understood and what I thought, why I thought it was good to have both ELI agent at the level of the request and FOF agent at the level of the execution of the request is precisely because I thought that if you have port in the level of the legislation, in the execution you have to identify all instances of port agent, that is ELI port, agent port. And I thought it was clever to consider the FOF agent to identify all instances of this ELI agent, you see. So, and what I thought, and we started discussing in the DRPM team about this, that maybe it would be good to keep to separate the ELI agent that belongs to the request and the agent that is really executing the request, having a FOF agent, and that instantiates the what is set in law when at the execution time. I don't know if I was clear.
Can you give another? Can you give the example of the ELI agent, Cecile, in your case?
Yeah, so in ELI agent, so I don't know, you prefer, I take again the case that Monica was explaining, that ports need to notify when a boat a vessel is coming in. And port is an ELI agent because it's set in law that ports need to do that.
Okay.
And they are, I don't know which agent type they are, by the way, if we need, or if they are agent types, and then I don't know what would be agent in this case. So for me, it's a bit unclear the difference, how agent type and agent are used in the legislation. But at the time, so this is set in law that ports need to notify. And then when there is an instance of a vessel entering the port, then a port, Rotterdam has this legislation where port has to notify. So Rotterdam port will notify something that the vessel is entering. And this is in the execution of legislation. And for me, Rotterdam port is not part of the request, is part of the execution of the request. And I thought, and I understood that why you had this fourth agent was precisely because you were considering, and by the way, you put it in the last layer, but Monica is right that agent is also needed in the intermediate layer of the request, because agents are either they can be, by the way, instances like the Commission has to report, and then you have both in the intermediate layer and in the execution layer the same agent that is Commission, but maybe from a different. So it's in the case of the execution, I would understand it's, well, if we go, it would be the fourth agent, and in the case when it's written in the request, in the legislation, then it would be the ELI agent. You see, it's okay.
I'm just gonna here because so essentially this is a business request. I'm just summing up. It's a request of a business request from the business side, on the fact that we have two needs. We have the need that is already being solved by Monica on considering agents from the legal perspective. So having a category of, I'm simplifying because I'm not as expert as you, but we have this need for representing what it means from the legal perspective. But at the moment of this execution, we have this new business need that we also need to have when we will have essentially the specific agent that transmit that specific data, and we have this need of being able to cater for that in the model. And this is really when at the execution layer. And I think here Cecilia, her proposed change request is really to work on how to include these in the model, either through two different classes or other ways that we still need to investigate. I think, I don't know if everybody agrees with this approach. I see no other comments, so I think this can be considered.
Alessio, just a question, but I understood the proposal from Cecile. But that's something I don't know. But it is a question because I have to ask it. Is ELI agent a grouping, always a grouping or an abstract notion, and that's the thing where the problem comes with the overlap with both agent and not. So we have this overlapping story in the sense of if it's the one in real, or ELI agent is the agent named as it is in the legislation. But that's then the definition of ELI agent is misleading because it says it is a person. It is very similar as both agents in that sense. And that's, I mean, if it's just the name or the circumscription of agents in legislation, that's something different for me than the agent organization itself.
Cecile and after
yes,
Monica.
I would like to have Monica's point of view on that, because for me, ELI agent is in fact, it's not only an individual people or group of people, because it's also in legislation you have some conditionalities that apply to this type of agent. Like if you are a business and if you are a small business, you may not be you may not have to respect the same rules as other types of businesses that are larger companies, for instance. So for me, when there is agent in the ELI, in the legislation, it is something that is abstract. And even if it's the commission or sometimes an agent that is well defined, like an agency or the commission or whatever, I think it's still the abstract notion of who it is that will then, at execution time, will be mapped to the real actor. But Monica, please give your views on this.
ELI agent come from a big debate inside of a legal community, and in the legal community, because we are talking about legislation, agents are legal agents. So legal agents are canonical divided in physical person and legal person. Legal person includes all the institutions that you said and mentioned, association, people, communities, public administrations, and so far. And physical person is a physical person. Software is not included. So because the command on the legal point of view come from a competence, and the competence is associated with the or physical person or legal person. This is a constitutional pillars inside of a legislation. So this is a purpose, because we are modeling commands, obligations, and you can't oblige a software to do something. We can oblige a institution to use a software for performing a command, but this is a theory of law that was the basis of ELI. I totally disagree to use for agent, because it is a very mistake in the legal domain, because software and artifact are not capable to implement command. And we are now modeling command and obligation to do something under institutional point of view.
Thank you very much, Monica. So here I would say that in this case, what we can take on board is the need to be able to model the business requirement, to need to be able to model at the execution request, so at the execution layer, while and keeping a ELI agent for the legal layer. But then we need to further work will need to go into identify exactly how to model the execution, the agent, the physical, the concrete manifestation of the agent at the moment of transmitting this information. Now we are really short on time. And we won't be able to go through all the other. We have other change requests that were presented by this colleague from the ELI task force. That maybe we need to tackle in another forum or in a asynchronous mode. I wanted first of all to thank you very much for this. I think it's a very nice discussion that we are having, and a very constructive approach also to this. And I wanted a little bit to move towards how we plan exactly to go forward with our collaboration, and essentially some organizational measures that we wanted to put in place in order to be able to work on this in a more structured and frequent manner amongst, especially for all the people that are involved in the technical side of the ontology development, and essentially here we have two main requirements and two main actions that we were planning to take. One, to have a dedicated online space to allow for the community members with a more technical background to propose changes to these vocabularies and to motivate these changes, and in a way that we can develop this ontology in a collaborative way and in a very transparent and open way. At the same time, this online space, we need, one of the requirements that we have for this online space is to also for people that come from the business side of you to be able to visualize it and verify it and eventually express their requirements, their business requirement concerning this data model. And we also are planning a dedicated online space for collecting a little bit more long feedback, long view feedback, free text feedback on this ontology, and enable these discussions also to work in an asynchronous way. And for this, what we were thinking is essentially, especially on the first part, we still haven't reached an agreement, but for the second online space, essentially we were thinking about using a Git repository in order to collect these feedback through issues or essentially leveraging this kind of functionalities. Then in terms of future steps and meetings, we are now discussing internally on the exact governance model to apply to this ontology, so how to take decisions and essentially how to make sure that all the stakeholders and people that want to use this ontology are happy with it and fulfills their own needs. Then we were thinking to have regular virtual meetings, so essentially one every 3-4 months, in a little bit in a similar way to what we are having today, but maybe with more content to cover and maybe also different points in agenda. And finally, to have essentially ad hoc meetings to work together on real-world applications. One could be, for example, like Monica, meetings to express the business needs that come from applications that develop these, that leverage these ontologies, and to see how we can cater to these. Like it could be Edit, could be, I see that Jesus from the European Parliament has expressed a need to have a further clarification on how this could impact a command also for EU, or how this could impact the application that they're using. For now, what I can say is that we don't foresee a short-term impact on AKN for EU, but of course, please, Monica.
No, just thank you for the question, Jesus. Welcome. All the ontology was designed around AKN for UN, and we have a pilot case where you are including this ontology directly inside of a Comantoso using Leos. So there is a proof of concept to use a combined way these ontology serialization of the tuples inside of a Comantoso, because we have a place that you know perfectly, the proprietary, and we cut and paste here everything, or a link to where to find the correspondence tripleization of the all requests connected with the extraction.
Okay, thank you very much, Monica. I wanted to say that especially for now, this is not this is a proposal and it's a proof of concept to see how it could work in practice. But just for Jesus, I wanted to say that we would like all the stakeholders to be involved into these discussions, and especially because there are some constraints involved into integrating more at a deeper level with AKN4EU, and this has also some kind of consequences. For now, this work is really focused on modeling the ontology and I'm sorry, modeling the ontology and trying to fit something that is also involved into other projects that are currently involved in the Commission, and we'll be very also interested in knowing what is the perspective of member states that deal with other kinds of reporting requirements or other kinds of requirements, and how could this fit their need. On the next steps, because we're almost on time. So essentially, we plan to implement the change requests that were agreed today for the 0.1.0 release as soon as possible. Continuing working on, we still need to have a discussion to have essentially the main kind of specification, whether it would be UML or RDF. We would be more focused on leveraging RDF as core as core as it's part of the standards of the semantic web community or wider. And we would now we also open our functional mailbox to gather additional change requests from the stakeholders for the 0.1.1 release. And this needs to be done by, so if you have some additional change requests, please send them to us to our functional mailbox by the 23rd of December 2024. Once we would process this change request by mid-February, and we would plan another meeting in these lines around that time, with the goal to release the 0.1.1 version by mid-March 2025, so that also other people and stakeholders can start using this specification, or at least preparing for the use of the specification. Then we also opened a channel to propose use cases where the RRMV, this reporting requirement metadata vocabulary, could be used at the local and national level, and we would keep this open until mid-May 2025. So if you know some administrations that could be using this specification, or you foresee some kind of use at local and national level by that time, please don't hesitate again to reach out to us. And we expect around mid-June 2025 the release of the version 0.2.0. With another business requirement that we had already from the Digital Ready Policymaking team, which is the extension of this specification to cater for other kinds of requirements, and especially to be able to be interoperable with another standard involved into the production of interoperability assessment reports and of the legislative, financial, and digital statement, which are quite deeply related with each other, especially the digital part of this statement. And again, if you want some more information about it, especially if you're in the Commission and you know that you will be impacted by these changes, please reach out to us. And we expect to release the first real release 1.0.0 later in 2025. So again, we already identified some other business requirements that would need to be tackled. So how to address the aspects related to the granularity of the data exchanged, and how to address the aspects related to how to make this information that we collect in the specification interoperable with statistical information databases and other, in order really to create a streamlined process that connects the legislation mandating the collection of data to the actors and the agents involved in this data collection, and to other databases that are currently in production, especially in the statistical domain. So thank you for this meeting. And again, here on the screen, you can see our functional mailbox. And I don't know if Cecile, you want to say a few words on these. And thank you very much for your time. And we will share with you all this material and these slides as soon as possible. Absolutely, Thomas. We will process them, update with the decisions that were taken today, and disseminate to all the people that were invited to this meeting. I also know that maybe you forwarded the emails, so we cannot keep track of everybody that you forwarded the emails to. So in case you know that you forwarded it in a different way, maybe pasting and copy pasting the link, please do help us in disseminating these slides too. And thank you very much. I'm gonna now stop the recording. Okay.
Let me thanks